more for you, you feel it. You know it. This is your life, and it's time to go from contender to champion. This is The Show with John Madsen.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, John Madsen. This is The Show. Once again, thank you for all of your support, continued support. I appreciate you, and I'm excited to be here today. I am going to talk about the power of forgiveness and taking 100% responsibility for every single thing in your life. We've talked about this before, but the other day I shared a post on Facebook, and I won't say it went viral because it's far from viral, but it got a tremendous amount of engagement, and it's a personal story and one that gave me a ton of personal power, and I think one that so many people resonated with, because there's people in your life right now that you are giving the power to because you're blaming them for your circumstance. And we can talk about this in many different ways, especially with society doing what it's doing, people blaming the government, people blaming the president, people protesting and looting and rioting on the streets, and blaming every motherfucker on the planet but themselves. And so it reminded me of some stuff that I went through. And so I'm going to share my journey and how it's transformed my life. I wrote the post, and the post was titled, "My Life Changed the Day I Forgave Lane Kiffin." And then I went into this story that I'm about to tell you. And this story, hopefully, will mean something to you. Hopefully, when I tell this story, there's going to be a person that comes to your mind and you will think, man, I got to forgive that person. I got to let this shit go. Because if you don't, you're giving this person all the power and they're stealing from your future. They are a thief in your future. And I did this for so long, guys. This is a somewhat recent revelation for me, and I'll take you through it right now. Back when I was getting into the NFL, I was a guy, some of you know the story. I was supposed to be a high draft pick. I was supposed to be drafted late first round, early second round. One of the most famous draft analysis on ESPN, Mel Kiper, had me ranked as one of the top 5 wide receivers in my class going into my senior year. My senior year was the year after we won the Fiesta Bowl. It was the year after Alex Smith was my quarterback. It was the year after we went undefeated. It was a year after we had the longest winning streak in college football at the University of Utah. My senior year, we didn't come out the gate as strong. I think we won a couple games. We had a brand new quarterback. We had a brand new head coach, and the season didn't really go as planned. But I was having a phenomenal senior year campaign. I was putting together, especially late in the season, a push to get me into the combine where I was going to blow people's minds. I had a 40-inch vertical. I was 6'5". I was 225 pounds. I could run. I could jump. I could catch everything. And I was going to put that on display in front of 32 teams. With 3 games to go, I broke my leg. 3 games to go, I broke my leg. There was no combine. There was no pro day. There was basically, I told this story before, I got $5,000 and a plane ticket to fly to Oakland as an undrafted free agent to try to make the team. As I got to Oakland, they moved me from wide receiver to tight end. So I had to take this 225-pound frame, put 20 pounds on it, become a tight end, a position that I've never played, and try to make the team in less than 4 weeks. And I did that. I went from being like 9th on the depth chart. If anybody's ever played football, you have this chart where they have all of the positions listed, and then underneath them, you have first string, second string, third string, fourth string. And then usually, if you're not third string in the NFL, you're out. But in training camp, every single year, they bring in about 100 guys. Maybe it's anywhere from 80 to 100. I can't remember exactly what it is. But at the end of the day, last cuts, you're going to have 53 guys and then 10 guys on practice squad. That's how it was back in the day. And so I had to break into this 53. And for the position of tight end, at the very most, they're going to keep 3. So I went into training camp at a position I never played before. And I saw my name in the coach's office at position number 9. So that means I had to cut veterans They had to cut veterans for me to pop into that number 3 spot. On the outside, there was no shot. If you were a gambler and you like to gamble in Vegas, the odds of me making it from that spot were not good. But I was a fighter. And I had resilience. And I believed in myself. And so I made it. I scored a touchdown that season. I broke into the top 2. I played a lot. I played a lot in special teams, and I actually played a lot on offense. Going into my second year, coaching staff got fired. In comes this new coaching staff, head coach Lane Kiffin, hotshot, 32-year-old, 33-year-old coach, arrogant, cocky, call him whatever you want. He's also smart as hell. He's a brilliant football mind. But he gets this job, and we have a year where we go 4-12. We were in some games. We were doing some good things. There was actually a lot of optimism for what we were going to do. I had an okay second year. I showed flashes of my athletic ability. And I remember going into the third year was the first year that I felt secure. I was reading beat writers' reports on who the next guy in the organization was going to be that was going to get paid. I remember reading this stuff about John Madsen about to cash in on his second contract when his rookie contract expired, because I was on an undrafted free agent rookie contract. And so how it was set up, this third year was the most important year for me. It was the year that I was going to finally break through and make millions. And I started reading this stuff and I started getting really excited. And then we opened up training camp. And as we got into training camp, there was turmoil between Lane Kiffin and Al Davis. For all you Raider fans or football fans in general, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about when I say Al Davis. He's a legend. He was very old at the time. And I have stories on stories on stories about Al Davis and what took place. And someday I'll share that. But there were two quarterbacks that was coming out in that year's draft. One, Brady Quinn, who I played with, ironically, later in my career, and Jamarcus Russell. And I think there was turmoil between Al and Lane on who they thought they should take with the first pick overall. Ultimately, in my opinion, and this may or may not be true, I think that Lane was probably leaning toward Brady Quinn and Al wanted Jamarcus Russell. And at the end of the day, Al was the guy in charge and he brought in Jamarcus Russell. And Jamarcus Russell might go down in history as one of the biggest busts in history of the NFL. But and fans can throw shade at players and this and that. I knew Jamarcus when he was a young kid, and he had, he signed the largest signing bonus, I think, in the history of football. So I don't blame him. That's a hard thing to live up to. But the fact for me was I was going into my third year, a pivotal point in my career where I was either going to make it or break it. And I got into training camp, and all of a sudden, I was being asked to play positions that I wasn't entirely 100% confident in myself in. Instead of being this flashy wide receiver / tight end that I was brought in there for, I was now being asked to do real tight end stuff, which is real blocking stuff against some of the biggest beasts in the entire world. And not only that, I was being asked to do some fullback stuff too. I was being utilized in a way, in my mind, was not conducive to my talents. And when you're doing something you're not completely competent in, and you don't experience success, especially when you're coming from what I call a fixed mindset, because back then I did have a fixed mindset. My mindset back then was like, I'm not a good blocker. I'm a wide receiver. I'm not a tight end. Fuck trying. I just want to catch passes and score touchdowns. You see, this is introspection after the fact. While I was in it, I was like, what the fuck are these coaches doing? Like, why won't they split me out and let me do what I'm good at? And instead of getting better and thinking that I had the ability to create a skill that I could get better at, I just thought that I wasn't good at something and that it was their fault for not putting me in the right position. I was also playing a lot of special teams. And special teams are kickoff return, punt return, and all the stuff that, like, in college, if you're a star in college, you're not really doing that stuff. And in the NFL, for the first 2 years, I was like, fuck, I got to make the team however. I'll run down on kickoff. I'll hit the wedge. I'll do whatever it takes. And during my second year, towards the end, I watched a guy for the Buffalo Bills. I forgot his name, but he was wearing number 85, which was my number. And I'm not even sure I've told anybody this story before. But the second string tight end, which I was a second string tight end, runs down on kickoff, hits the wedge, which was exactly the position that I usually had to do. And I don't think he hit the wedge. I think he tried to make a tackle. And because he was on offense and wasn't used to tackling anybody, he did so with his head down. And I watched over and over and over on ESPN, this guy just lie lifeless on the football field. Ambulances came. The game was stalled for half an hour or however long it took to get him off the field. And I sat there and I couldn't help to think when the reports came out that he'd probably never walk again. And I don't think he's ever been able to walk again. I'll have to look that up. This guy who was so young and athletic and he was wearing the same number and he was just living his dream. And now all of a sudden he couldn't walk again. And I started to think, fuck, I have to do that same thing, man. I'm not a great tackler either. I don't really want to do special teams. It's dangerous. And as soon as that thought got implanted in my brain, I couldn't get it out. I could not get it out no matter how hard I tried. And if you want to put it in sports terms, I lost my edge. I lost my desire to go down and just lay it all on the line. I was holding something back because that one event changed me. And I get chills thinking about it because I know this is the turning point of my whole NFL career. I lost the edge because I watched that over and over and over again. I could not help but watch it because it was all over ESPN a million times. So going into my third year when I had to do special teams again, and I was struggling in training camp because all of a sudden I was being put in positions that I wasn't confident in. I remember every time I was doing the special team stuff, I was like, fuck, I really don't want to be doing this. Like I really, really don't want to be doing this. And I couldn't play with that just looseness that allowed me to make the teams the other 2 years. So on opening day, we are playing a Monday night, the Denver Broncos, and I'm doing kickoff return, which is the hardest job in football, by the way, where literally I was on the front line. I'd have to sprint back to the 30-yard line, swivel my hips, and I'd have a guy running full blast that was either going to run through me or around me. And for the Broncos that day, I was trying to block this guy who was fast as hell, way faster than me, athletic, and he'd juke me out and go down and make the tackle. And I think he made like 3 tackles. And on the sideline, the special teams coach is like, John, what the fuck are you doing? Right? And in my head, I'm just like, fuck special teams. And so that game got over. I know I had a terrible game. And I got demoted on special teams the next time. And then the coaches were on me and my confidence shattered. My confidence was shattered. I went from being like the most sure-handed football player on the team to literally I would drop passes that I would never drop. I was in my own head. And I had no idea how to get out of it, which, by the way, is a reason I've been down this road to work on my mindset since this happened, because I would never allow it to happen again. Long story short, we're boarding the bus for Buffalo. I'm in a $5,000 gangster pinstripe suit that I'm really proud of. I'm in the dumps in my head. I know that I'm struggling. And I get a tap on the shoulder by one of the guys in the organization that says, hey, Lane Kiffin wants to talk to you. And I'm like, shit, this is a Friday. I'm going to play in Buffalo. And I go in Lane's office and I knew as soon as I was in his office, and I don't remember his exact words. They were something like, John, you should be proud of yourself. You've done everything we've asked, blah, 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 blah. But at this time, like, you're just not a great fit. I wish you the best. And, you're cut. And it was the first time in my fucking life I was cut. And I couldn't really say anything. I went down, and this is how cutthroat NFL is. They gave me a box. All the other guys was boarding the bus. I was still in my suit. I start taking it off. I start putting my cleats in a box to be shipped home. And all my buddies on the team for the past 3 years, like, John, what's happening? What's going on? I'm like, bro, I'm cut. And I remember like tears coming down my eyes because my dream was gone. I was like, dude, like I'm cut. And they're like, no fucking way, man. That's bullshit. I'm like, it is bullshit. Call my agent, call my dad. I'm like, what the fuck? Fuck Lane Kiffin. And I blamed him. I blamed him for stealing my dream. I blamed him for cut my dream short. I blamed him for not getting that multi-million-dollar contract. I blamed him for not believing in me. I blamed him for everything. And I never got my mojo back. I got cut. Long story short, 2 weeks later, Lane Kiffin gets fired. The very next week, I get brought back to Oakland. So all of a sudden, I was cut. I was gone. I said my goodbyes. Now I'm back in. Now all the guys are like, John, what the fuck are you doing here? I'm like, oh, like apparently Al Davis wanted me back. Lane's gone. Now I'm here. But then I was on the chopping block. Then I was like, every little move I make, every little mistake that I made, I thought I was going home. So now I really couldn't play. Now I was really locked up. And at the end of the year, the inevitable happened. 3 games to go, I get cut again. Immediately, Cleveland Browns call me up. I'm on a flight. I go there. I try out. They sign me. So I go from being an Oakland Raider to a Cleveland Brown at the end of the year. This coaching staff wanted me for the receiver / tight end I was. They were like, this guy can play. And so I was super excited. But there was only 2 games left, so I didn't get any playing time with the Browns. I just started practicing. I was like, awesome. I need to fucking reset, and I need to just get my mojo back. And at the end of the year, because Cleveland sucked, their coaching staff got fired too. And so in comes a new coaching staff who didn't know anything about me or care. And then I went back from being the wide receiver / tight end to, in this offense, I was back to the normal tight end where they were putting me in positions where I'm like, fuck, I'm not a good blocker, man. And I'm in this fixed mindset. And I was miserable. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. In fact, I want to get cut. I remember having this feeling where I was like, you know what? If I tear my ACL, I don't have to quit and I still get $500,000. And I can just say, you know what? Like in my head, I was like, all I need is a year to like process all this and for me to like gain this confidence back. But I don't have a year in the NFL. And inevitably, right before last cuts, I get cut from Cleveland. And ironically, everyone's like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. Blah, blah. I was just like, I was relieved. And in my heart, I'm just like, football, I don't even know if I want to play anymore. And ultimately, I ended up trying to get back into the league, playing for the UFL. This is a long story, not the point. The point is I'm trying to take you from the moment I got cut from Lane Kiffin, that my career just drizzled out. And I had this blame and this hatred for this guy. Thought he was an arrogant prick. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Didn't matter. And long story short, I'm done playing football. I'm 27 years old. I sign a lease for my first gym that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to train athletes. This is what I want to do. I'm going my next career. I'm going to leave football behind. But I couldn't watch the NFL. I couldn't watch the players. Every time I watch the game, I'm like, I'm better than that dude. I should be out there. I had this resentment living inside of me. And I still wanted to blame Lane. If anyone wanted the stories, like, fuck Lane Kiffin. He's the reason I'm here. But you know, excuse me, the funny thing about this whole story was in my heart, I knew it was my fault. But I needed a story to take the blame and responsibility off of me so that I didn't feel embarrassed or ashamed that I couldn't cut it. To who, I don't know. Because I don't, like, the friends I grew up with, they didn't play in the NFL. Nobody really can say shit unless you played longer than me. I came from not playing high school football to playing in the NFL. Like, nobody really can say shit about it. But yet I needed to justify myself and my ability and protect myself and protect my ego by blaming somebody else. And then I watched this business that I started fail, and I had to move out. And then it was somebody else's fault. It was always Lane Kiffin's fault or somebody else's fault. And then I started another business, and this process happened over and over again. I struggled with money. I watched my money go from, whatever it was to zero. And then I was ashamed that it went to zero because I'm a smart guy and I'm like, I was a straight A student and I should have known better. And each time I'm trying to protect my ego by making it about somebody else. My credit was fucked up because I didn't turn in a Comcast receiver when I moved. And something else, I forgot about a bill. And I'm like, I moved 3 times. Like, excuse me. I moved 3 times. Couldn't you guys call me? And so it was somebody else's fault. And my life changed one day, probably in my mid-30s. I was already married. It wasn't long ago. I'm 37. I would say that my life's taken a turn the last 2 years. And I probably would say that when I finally took, it wasn't about stop blaming Lane Kiffin. That's a headline. It was that John took 100% responsibility over himself. It wasn't Lane Kiffin's fault. It wasn't Comcast's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It wasn't the economy's fault. It wasn't the president's fault. John, you are here because of your actions. You did this. You were cut because you lost confidence and you couldn't get your mojo back. You were cut because you refused to put in the extra time. You were cut because you would fly down to Vegas and you would pop bottles of rosé and you would live for the weekends and you were this NFL star in your head. And instead of buckling down and getting better at the stuff you needed to get better at, or letting go of the fact that that number 85 that got hurt wasn't you, and getting that edge back and having that desire that propelled you there, like you didn't do all the things. And because you didn't have a nutritionist and you didn't have a peak performance coach and you didn't have all this stuff that you could have had, you got cut. You got cut. Lane Kiffin didn't cut you. You got cut. You cut yourself. And I started to own it, not only for that, for everything. 100% responsibility. Not 99. Not the president's fault, not the government's fault, nobody's fault, John's fault. And when I took responsibility for my life changed. And not only that, another part of this story is I forgave Lane. I was like, you know what? Lane was doing his job. He's trying to win. He was doing what he thought was best. Maybe it was best, maybe it wasn't. Lane, I forgive you. I didn't tell him in person. I don't know how to get a hold of him, but in my head, Lane, I forgive you, man. It's all good. It's all good. I am where I am. And then I looked in the mirror and I did the thing that was most powerful at all. John, I forgive you. I forgive you for going to Vegas and popping rosé and thinking you were a star and thinking you made it, man. You were a young kid. Emotional thinking about it because it's real. You were 25 years old, man. You were 26. You didn't know. You don't know what you know now. That experience gave you this gift to do what you do now, to excel at the highest level, man. You were just living your life. And I forgive you. But what I won't tolerate is you making the same mistake. You will learn this lesson and you will take responsibility and you will own your shit and you will sharpen your mindset to motherfucking razor sharp bulletproof status so that when the economy comes up or coronavirus comes up or everyone's fucking rioting and looting, you have so much fucking laser focus that your business triples, which it did in the hardest of hard times. Because you, motherfucker, are focused. And everybody can talk shit and blame everybody and do whatever they're going to do, but you know better. You know better. And that's the conversation that I had with myself. And that's the conversation that every time I look in the mirror, I have with myself. I get in a fight with my wife. What can I do better? What can I do better? What can I do better? I am 100%. Not 99, not 50-50. I am 100%. Shit going south in business, what can I do better? What can I work on? You see, that's the growth mindset. That's the shit that champions are made of. And you see, the problem with all of this shit is that this starts young, okay? And I'm going to tie it to, like, if you're a parent and you have an athlete and that athlete isn't getting playing time, I don't care for whatever reason. And then at the dinner table, you're sitting around and you're talking shit and you're saying, you know what, you should be playing, but so-and-so's dad's a booster and this and that, and it's a bunch of bullshit. And, you know, coach said this to you and I'm going to go to the administration and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. As a parent, you're fucking killing your kids. Killing them. Because it's not just football or basketball or baseball or tennis. What you're teaching them is that they're not responsible, that it's somebody else's fault, that they're a victim of circumstance. They're a victim from their coach. I don't care if it's true or not true. They're not a victim. Your message should be, what can you do to get better? Oh, you're not playing? So-and-so's dad's a booster and he's playing? Well, son, are you tracking everything you eat? You need to gain 20 pounds. Are you doing that? Son, I don't see you outside during the quarantine practicing your shit. I see you inside playing video games, fucking around with your friends. So maybe that's true, he's a booster, but what the fuck are you doing? Because if you teach responsibility, then you raise a person that has all the power. When I gave myself responsibility, I had all the power. I have all the power right now. I come from a place of power. And if you look at society and everybody who wants to blame everybody else for their circumstance, they want to blame the government, they want to blame everything. Will they ever win? Will they ever win? Am I worried about that? No. Does it light me up? Yes. Because I fucking hate victimhood. 100% responsibility no matter what color you are, no matter what race you are. You ask yourself, am I responsible? Am I responsible, or is it someone else's fault? And if you don't answer that question right, you are always going to come from a place with zero power. I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about you in the least. I'm worried about the real people who know. Those are the people with all the power. Those are my competitors. If you're not coming from that angle, you're a critic in the stands. Nobody cares about you. I want to compete with the real people. I want to compete with the people who know. And I wanted to share that story with you because I want you, if you're driving, if you're working out, if you're on a walk, I want you to ask yourself, man, who am I blaming? Who do I need to forgive right now? Mom, dad, sister, brother? Who can I take responsibility? How can I take responsibility? And the real question I want you to ask yourself is, am I able to forgive myself? And I want you to have that same conversation that I had with myself, because if you do that, your life will change forever.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of The Show with John Madsen. The greatest compliment that you could give us is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all of your friends. So please go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and then share it online with everyone that you know. Make sure to tag John as well. He loves to hear from listeners of the show. The links for all of his socials and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage John for anything related to his coaching, consulting, or programs, please visit johnmadsen.com for everything you'd need to know on how to engage with John offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Show.